Hi friends, welcome to Widowed and Winning. I'm Janice, and today we're going to talk about certain things you shouldn't say to a widow or someone who has experienced a loss. And I have 10 things about what you shouldn't say, and then a few things what you should say, and then I have some funny stories to share with you as well. So the first thing you should never tell a widow is, I know exactly how you feel, because if you haven't lost a spouse, then you don't know how we feel. Losing a parent or a child or a grandparent or a friend, it's not the same as losing your spouse. And I will just tell you, every grief is different, and that statement just feels dismissive. I don't even tell my widowed friends that, because I don't know how it feels to lose a spouse to like cancer or a car accident or something like that. So I don't know how that feels. I just know from my own experience how I feel. So don't ever tell a widow that. The second one is, at least they lived a long and happy life. My husband was only 49 when he died. And so he didn't live a long life. He didn't get blessed with a long life. He was a good man and he had a good life, but he was not old. He wasn't that old. And so even I would suspect that you shouldn't say that to someone who has lived a long life, because it's never long enough, and their family is still going to be grieving them forever. One of the things that I've always hated, and it sort of gives me conflicting feelings, is everything happens for a reason, because I do believe in God and I do believe in destiny and that sort of thing. But I hate that when somebody says everything happens for a reason, because it just, I don't know, it feels very dismissive, and it hurts me because it makes me feel like, oh, so he was meant to be my husband, you know, for this many years, and that's it. And then, yes, we're all supposed to die, so yes, that he does die, but why couldn't it be, why couldn't he live a little bit longer? So I hate when people say that everything happens for a reason. And I know 100% that I've been that person that has said that, maybe not to somebody in grief, but in other parts of life. So guess what? I'll never be saying ever again is everything happens for a reason, because it doesn't help the person in grief. Number 4 is, you should be over it by now. Mike died in October 2021, and that is 3 years ago, but it still feels like yesterday to me. I could tell you how the weather was. I could tell you what I was wearing, down to how I had my hair, what earrings I had on, what I had to eat that day. And so I'll never be over it. I will always have it with me, and it sort of has now shaped my life on how I go forward with life, because it has changed me in every single way possible that you could even imagine, things that you can't even imagine. I'll never be over it. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think it's a good thing. I'll never be over it. Number 5, and I do hate this. I get this a lot, and I'm sure widows that are younger than me get this as well, is, you're so young and you'll find someone else. And I will say I'm not that young. I mean, relatively sure. I'm middle-aged. I'm 48 years old. I was just like 3 weeks shy of being 45 when Mike died. So I am considered a young widow. And that doesn't mean I am looking for someone. And you know, if God blesses me with another husband, then maybe, but that's not something that in this time of my life I'm expecting or hoping. I do have hope, but that's not my goal. My goal right now is just to sort of navigate this new season in my life and conquer it and be widowed and winning, if you will. Number 6 is, they're in a better place, which I wholeheartedly believe. I do believe Mike is in heaven because he believed in God and Jesus and that sort of thing. But especially when he first died, his space should have been with me. He should have been with me, because the day we met, and I will tell this story in another video, we met and we were never apart for years until he died. Every single day we spent together. There was not a day that we were apart. And so his place should have been with me. And another part of this loss that you don't know about until you go through is after he died, and it was probably several months later, probably 6 months later, that all of a sudden I had this epiphany, like, you know what? He left me. I got left behind, and that was a whole different circle of grief that I had to go through and navigate and heal from, because then I felt like the spouse that got left behind. So that was a hard place. Even though I know he's in a better place logically, I still think that his place should have been with me. Number 7 is, and please don't ever say this unless you really mean it for somebody that's going through grief, especially widows. Let me know if you need anything, because I will call in favors. And most of you know who know me and that have said that to me. I have called in and been like, hey, I need your help right now. One of the best things that ever happened was so many people offered help, and I didn't call in everybody, but I called in a lot of people. Me and Mike shared an apartment, and I could not stay there after the day he went to the hospital. Suddenly I never stayed there again. I never slept there again. And so we only had 2 more months on our lease, and I paid it, but I never stayed there. I was lucky enough and blessed enough that my sister was able to take me in, and me and my Tuna girl, who is my doggy, my baby, and I'll share her with you here shortly. You might hear her on the floor or barking, so apologies. Yeah, so I called people that I knew and loved, friends and family, mostly family, but they came and they moved me all in one day, and we got everything moved into my sister's house. And that was hard because you know, just to organize something like moving after the death of your spouse is super hard. So I had all these people helping me, and I couldn't even, I mean, I can't, it touches my heart so much to know how blessed I was that people were able to help me and did help me, that said things. So don't ever offer help unless you're willing to actually do it. I know I have my own limitations, and so when some people, you know, have lost spouses or been divorced since I've been widowed, I don't offer certain things because there are certain things I know I can't do for them. But the ones that I have offered help, if they called me and they need me, guess what? I'm going to be there because I offered that to them, and they don't forget. They don't forget who says what and who is willing to help and who isn't. So don't say that unless you don't mean it. Number 8 is, you are so strong. And I've been told that so many times, and it's funny because I joined a group of widows, like a widow group, and they were just randomly talking about this the other day, that they don't love it when people tell them how strong they are, because what's the options? They don't have a choice but to be strong. And so that's actually very true. I didn't have options. I had 2 options really. I could lay down and die, and I wanted to, and there's a small part of my life that I sort of lived that way, and we could talk about that in another video, but I did choose to be strong, and that's sort of how I'm going to live my life from now on, because I'm not going to let Mike's death destroy me, and it did for a short while, and it's hard to talk about, and I'm sure it was hard to watch me go through that, but try not to say that to somebody unless you know they're receptive to that, because they didn't have a choice but to be strong. And then I can't remember what number we're on. Oh my God, I'm failing at this. The next one is, it's time to move on. And that's hard because once you've experienced such a profound loss as the loss of your spouse or partner, you can't move on. You can move forward, but you'll always have this part of you that has sort of shaped your life. I was this Janice before Mike died, and now I'm this person, and going forward I will always have that loss with me, and it will always be a part of me and shaping who I am. And I actually don't mind that, because I think I'm a better person now than I used to be. And I do also think that Mike made me strong and made me able to handle certain things, and we could talk about that. He made me a better person, that's what I was trying to say. And So people who knew me before Mike knew a certain me, and some things I'm not proud of that I did. But since I've met Mike, he really helped shape me into who I am and who I am becoming. Instead, there's certain things that you could say to a widow or someone who has experienced loss. And the one of the big ones, and not just to say it, but do it, is I'm here for you. And there's so many people in the last 3 years that, gosh, I'm so blessed because so many people have been here for me, and it's like I can't even explain in words how blessed I am. My sister sold her house so me and her could live together. We bought a beautiful house together, and it's been sort of like my healing house, and someday we won't live here, but for now it's been some of the best parts of my healing is being in this house. So she really was here for me. She lost, excuse me, it chokes me up. If you want to talk about love, sell your house for someone and go buy a new house with them. Excuse me. Okay, so that was love, and she was here for me, and she meant it. And I mean, I could never pay that back. Another thing is like, I do call my sisters, or I call my dad, or I've even called my brother-in-law because sometimes I need help, whether it be around the house or whatever it is, and they come and help me. And sometimes just being there is listening to me and crying with me and telling stories about what a great man he was, because he was. Excuse me. And in another video, we will talk about him. I just know I'll cry my eyelashes off in that video, so I'm going to save that for another time. But just being there for somebody, even just holding their hands, or, you know, sometimes in my widow group, we set up happy hours or dinners or get-togethers at their houses because it's just nice to have someone to be there with you. And so you could definitely say that to somebody if you mean it. Another thing is you can say, I can't imagine how hard it is or what you're going through, because if you haven't been through a certain loss, don't say that I can't imagine what you're going through. You don't know unless you lost your spouse suddenly, or yes, he was in the hospital for 5 days, but he really never came through. You don't know how hard it is. You might have, Mike had 3 beautiful children, and I don't know how it is to lose a father, because guess what? My father is still alive. And I don't know what it is for them. So I can't imagine how hard it is for children to lose their parents. But I know how hard it is. I can't imagine how hard it is for a spouse and another widow who has lost their spouse. And I'm sorry, I was going to make this a funny video, but there are just certain things that you should say and you shouldn't say. And if you've said them to me, don't even worry about it, because I don't hold grudges. And because I know I've probably said these to widows, and I probably said the wrong thing as well. And that's just part of it. One thing that's really hard for me to hear, and I don't know what you could say in the opposite thing to say, and I still say it to people, is I'm sorry for your loss. But what are these? When people would say it to me, I'm like, okay, thank you. I get so awkward because I don't know what to say, or I say, oh, it's okay, like trying to minimize it because I don't want to make it awkward for other people. Because I have made it awkward for some people, and I didn't mean to. One of the things that I always laugh about it now is right after Mike died, it was, well, maybe a couple weeks or a month or two, I wanted my sister to be on my account. The one sister, Stephanie, who bought the house with me, sold her house and moved in with me. I wanted her to be on my bank accounts just in case something happened, because now I was very aware that I could just die and there might not be a reason for it. And so I was like, oh man, we got to get you on my bank account in case something happens. So we go to the bank, and we go in, and the teller, she's a very nice lady. I had been, me and Mike had been at this bank for a long time. And I say to her, like, oh, this is my sister. I need to put her on my account in case something happens to me, in case I die. And she's like, oh, you're so young. You're not going to die. And she comes around the counter and is like typing in, and she looks at my account and she says, oh, where's Mike? And I'm just like, he died. and it was super quiet in the bank. There was a bunch of people in there, and my sister, I don't know how she feels about this, but I had this insane urge, like it was like a maniacal laugh. It was like bubbling and wanted to come out, especially because it was so quiet. And what I just said to this woman, I feel like I ruined her whole day, or maybe her month at work. I don't think that she'll ever forget that, probably. And I bet she won't ever say that to somebody else again, because I just was like, oh, he's dead. You know, he died. I blurted that out. And so we got back in the car, and she was very quiet. She did what, you know, I needed her to do. We didn't really make any other small talk. And I just felt so bad that that's how I responded. So we get in the car, and I just tell my sister, like, oh my God, I just need to laugh because I just ruined this lady's life, you know? So I just hope that maybe she'll think about what she says to somebody. But I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry to you, whoever you are at the bank, because I never went back. I never went back inside. And so who knows what happened to her, but I hope she's doing okay. Because I feel so bad. There are a couple things that people have said to me that I just can't handle. Like, one still makes me very angry, and it was at his funeral, at Mike's funeral, you know, and I was still in a blur, and my sisters had to plan the funeral. They had everything set in motion and everything, but I don't even remember, like, I don't even remember. So anyways, I don't know how I got through the first year because it was such a daze to me, but some lady, I actually ended up wearing Mike's favorite dress, and it's sort of like a sparkly thing on the very top, and then the rest is black, and it's a very pretty dress. And I wore it that first time for him, and it was a surprise. I was so excited because it was during lockdowns, and so I was like, I got this dress, and I wanted to wear it for him and be surprised. And we had like a little New Year's party in our apartment, and just me and him and our dog, and I made food, and we made it fancy, and he dressed up and I dressed up, and I had this dress on, and he loved it. It was his favorite dress. And so, like, sometimes he would ask me to wear that dress because it was his favorite dress, and I would do it because I wanted to make him happy, and it made me happy to make him happy, and also because I really loved that dress, and I still have that. I haven't worn it since, but I do love that dress. And somebody actually came up to me after the funeral and asked me if I was already ready to party. They said, are you already ready to party now? And I was like, no. And I was like, what in the world? And I wanted to punch them because I don't think they realized what they just said to me. They were acting like my husband's dead now, and I think I'm going to go find another husband and party with them. I don't know what these meant, but I would never comment on somebody's choice of attire at a funeral. So don't say that. Another thing is, I had a friend who I'm no longer friends with because they just say the weirdest things, but he was going through a divorce at the same time I was, same time I was being widowed. And he says to me, oh, I know completely what you're going through. And I beg to differ, because I've been divorced. I've been married twice. So I've been divorced the first time. The second time, obviously, I was widowed. And they are not the same, not even in the same realm. You can't even compare them. The first one, I didn't love my husband. He wasn't good to me. And I probably wasn't good to him. He didn't love me. And so we wanted to be apart. The second time is, you know, we were very much in love, and Mike was it for me. And Mike was the one I had prayed for my whole life. And he was the one I know that God sent to me to, you know, and I do believe that I do believe that God sent me to Mike so that he could have a happy ending to his life. And you'll have to listen to my story on that at another time. But, you know, we were very much in love, and we had a whole life planned ahead of us. And all of a sudden we didn't get that because Mike, you know, passed away. He died. And here I am stuck left with this, and I'm in love with my husband. Just because he died doesn't mean I still have all this love. It didn't go nowhere. He died. My love didn't. And that's completely different than what happens when you're divorced. So I was boggled that somebody actually said that to me, that they were getting divorced. So anyhow, that's all the stories I could think of. There was one more. It was about a DMV thing where I went and I had the death certificate, and I had to show that Mike died, and I needed the deed for his car because I had paid off the car, but that car was under his name still, and this was probably a year and a half in. And I just had, in Colorado, there's a form you could fill out, and then if the notary public sees that he's dead, they like sign over the car to the spouse or whatever. And so I went to the bank and I went to do that. And I explained this to the guy, and he seems like he's listening. And then, you know, well, he's like, well, I can't help you because unless Mike's here, you know, I need his signature. And I was like, maybe you weren't listening, but I just told you he passed away. He's dead. He's not going to be here. It's going to be hard to get him here because he's dead. And I said, here's his, you know, death certificate to prove it. So that guy was kind of rude, and so I was just rude back. But I try. It's so weird, and I don't know if other widows do this, but you try to soften the blow if someone's like, oh, are you married? Or, you know, where's Mike? Or how's Mike? Or, you know, I try to soften the blow so it doesn't hurt them. Even though it hurts me still to answer that question. So let me know if you go through that as well. But yeah, so there's certain things you can say and certain things you shouldn't say. Maybe just say, you know, I think the best thing really is, I can't imagine how hard this is. And if you're able, I'm here for you. If you need it, is the best thing to say. But yeah, thank you for watching my videos. There will be more content, and I will talk about Mike and everything, and how we met, and then what we're doing, what I'm doing in my future, and how we're winning at this thing in life. And like I said, not winning in that I'm, you know, my life is perfect, because it's not. My life is still messy, but I think it has a lot to do with my faith and my attitude, and so we'll talk about that as well. So I welcome you to my channel. Hopefully you'll subscribe and come back later and let me know if you have any stories you want to share, or just tell me what you like. All right, so I'll see you next time, and I love you, and remember, you're always loved and you're never alone.